Yeah, I guess while we're waiting, maybe I'll just mention, so the people we have on this call, so there's myself, I help with ecosystem and strategy, and also just general community growth here at Aleo. We also have Sam, he's a colleague of mine, also helping with strategy and growth here at Aleo. And then we have Demir, who's one of our colleagues, primarily working, he's an engineer working with us, and he's also a Russian speaker, so maybe he can help us out here. And then, okay, I see Howard just joined, and he's obviously the CEO of Aleo and will be a really great person to talk with. So yeah, I guess maybe we can just jump right into this. So perhaps we can start with some of the general questions. And I don't know if, Howard, you want to maybe start here and just maybe go down the list of those first five? I think that would be a good place to start.
Okay, sorry guys, just a quick introduction in Russian, right?
Okay, yeah, that's fine.
Так, у нас начинается АМА с команды Aleo. У нас тут вся команда, включая SEO Говарда. Сейчас мы пробежимся по вашим вопросам. Первый блок будет основные вопросы, второй блок — это тестнет и технические вопросы, ну и третий блок — это Sale, ISO и все остальные. И после этого вы можете задать свои вопросы в чате, мы их переведем и зададим Говарду. Okay, so we can start. So, the first question is, what is the idea behind Aleo, right? How this idea came to your mind?
Yeah. First off, I just wanted to say to everyone, thanks for taking the time. Thanks for joining. This is obviously super exciting. And just to jump in through the questions that are on here. First off, in terms of like the idea about Aleo, well, a few years ago, myself and a number of researchers were evaluating the landscape and the crypto landscape, and we were evaluating blockchains on two primary verticals. One is on programmability, and the other is on privacy. And just looking at these two verticals, it was very clear that Bitcoin was quite low on both. And you could see that Ethereum had extended Bitcoin in one direction to offer high programmability, and the Zcash had went the other direction, extending Bitcoin to offer high privacy. But as you can tell, there was this upper right-hand quadrant of high programmability and high privacy that was missing, and we asked ourselves if we could come up with a solution that was only rooted in math, didn't have other assumptions, didn't require some crazy kind of economic incentive model, didn't require trusted hardware, for example, and the primary security assumptions were cryptographically based. And that's how Aleo was born. It started off as this research project called ZEXI, which stands for Zero Knowledge Executions, and we published this paper about a year and a half, almost 2 years now actually, and got that into the Top Computer Security Conference. It was the same one that the original Zcash paper debuted in, and around that time also open sourced the initial research on GitHub. And from there, effectively, we got a lot of inbound interest. As you can imagine, a lot of decentralized exchanges or token wallets were interested, in part because you could now construct dark pools. You could also construct private tokens. You could also have shielded wallets. These are all unique features and interesting features for these guys who had already conquered the public markets and were looking to expand into private markets. So from our side, we decided this is an interesting opportunity. Why don't we go about making that happen, making that a reality?
Okay, thank you. Женя?
Да, значит, вопрос. Приветствует всех и благодарит за уделенное время. Значит, как родился проект Aleo? Несколько лет назад Говард с его коллегами-исследователями изучали блокчейн-проекты, технологии и заметили, что им в основном не хватает возможности программирования к расширению и приватности. Некоторые предлагали расширение одного, некоторые другого, например, Zcash. И они подумали, почему бы не создать свой проект, который включит обе эти возможности. Так у них родился проект Zero Knowledge Exchange. Они выложили его на GitHub. И примерно 2 года назад на компьютерной конференции у них уже была open source реализация этого проекта. Вот. Таким образом, они пришли к этой идее. Aleo может создавать приватные кошельки, защищенные экономические какие-то программы, маркеты приватные, ну и все в таком духе.
Спасибо. Okay, thank you. And let's go to the second one. What is your previous experience and the previous experience of the core members?
Yeah, it's a good question. Frankly, amongst the team, especially the core team, all of us are. First off, we've been in crypto for a long time. To give a bit about myself, I first got into the crypto space about 10 years ago, and at the time it was through just Bitcoin mining on CPUs and GPUs. ASICs hadn't really come about yet, and over the years, as those things became more dominant, I started looking at other altcoins. During my time in university, there was a lot of mania around these altcoin booms. Litecoin, Dogecoin, Namecoin, you name it. And that was really when I started getting a lot more interested on the research side. And so, and that's also when I met a lot of the folks that are now a part of this core team. Most of us came out of research labs from Berkeley, from Johns Hopkins, from Cornell, from NYU, and from these groups, we worked on a number of papers together. We worked on a lot of projects together. And over the years have been involved with Ethereum, have been involved with Zcash. But yeah, I'd say broadly, the team here is extremely crypto native.
Окей, thank you. Итак, Говард в крипте уже 10 лет. Соответственно, сначала занимался майнингом на ЦПУ, дальше изучал альткоины, и вся core-команда, она работала в лабораториях многих университетов в Штатах довольно много времени, и познакомились они, собственно, именно в криптомире. То есть экспириенс в крипте у них довольно большой. Женя, что ты добавишь?
Да, после того, как он занимался майнингом, в основном биткоин-майнинг, дальше появлялись всякие альткоины, лайткоин-бум, догикоины, и это привело немного больше интереса к исследовательской части этих проектов и блокчейнов. Вот, в то время он познакомился с основной частью их команды, и они работали на нескольких проектах, в том числе на Zcash. В общем, они все криптоэнтузиасты в своей душе и давно в крипте.
All right, that's actually great. And we can go to the next one, right? Who are backing the project? What funds are backing the project? And do they help in building or advertising or something like this?
Yeah, so, we announced about almost 2 months to the date exactly that we just had raised a very large round. And with that, our primary lead was Andreessen Horowitz at A16Z. And we also had other investors, including Polychain, Placeholder, Galaxy, Variant, Coinbase Ventures, Slow Ventures. The list goes on and on, including a number of angels. There was Balaji, Naval, Joseph Lubin. There's a ton of angels that were also in the round. But overall, I'd say our leads have been the most effective, not only in helping us in terms of finding talent, but also in terms of growing our presence. Just this past week, actually, on Tuesday, I wrote a piece about blockchain and zero-knowledge proofs and published it on A16Z's new blog surface called Future. Broadly speaking, I'd say I think one of the biggest benefits of working with funds is network effects, helping get initial inroads and conversations to help bootstrap this effort, whether it be for getting the network started with miners, certainly in terms of finding engineering talent, finding good people to work with, and also finding good partners.
Okay, thanks. Then.
Значит, немного
помогает ли? Sorry, давай.
Вопрос про бэкеров, про поддержку, про инвесторов. Как они помогают развивать, рекламировать проект. Значит, где-то 2 месяца назад был большой приток инвестиций. Его возглавила H16Z Хоровиц, в том числе Polychain, некоторые другие, ангелы, Навал, Божи. Вот. Основной поинт этого всего — это то, что фонды помогают не только с ресурсами, но и с нетворкингом. Они помогают завести первичные контакты, найти нужных людей, талантов, начать майнинг на сетях, и, в принципе, искать нужных разработчиков и так далее. Не так давно Говард опубликовал статью об этом, в том числе о SDK-пруфах Zero Snark.
Спасибо. И также стоит добавить, что среди инвесторов есть и Coinbase Ventures. All right. Let's go to the next one. So what are the main advantages, right, that Aleo can offer? And what differentiates from others? And who are the main competitors of Aleo?
Yeah, I mean, this is a fun question. First off, I think the biggest point to call out is scale. For example, if you look at the NFT market today, what a lot of teams are doing is minting, say, 10 NFTs each worth $1 million, right? But if you think about a lot of real-world applications, what they want, in terms of a business, is to deploy 1 million NFTs each worth $10. And no solution out there can do that today. You can pick any L1 you want. I'm happy to, take a stab at it. I would love to see a system that can do this very performantly. It's a fundamental challenge right now with the technology, and you effectively need a form of a scaling solution in order to make that possible. Aleo at its core is able to support applications like this easily. But in addition to doing that, I'd say another big piece is effectively offering, everything from fully public to fully private and the spectrum in between for your application needs. So, when you think about, let's say in gaming, there's chess and there's Battleship, two very popular games that people like to play as board games. And, in chess, that's something that you can put on Ethereum. You can put it on Aleo as well. And the intuition for why it works is that, both parties are supposed to see the board, and it's about your strategy that really kind of sets you apart in terms of your skill. But when you think of the game of Battleship, there's fundamentally an information asymmetry. Only one party is supposed to see their board, and the other party is only supposed to see their board. And so you're not supposed to be able to see your opponent's pieces, because otherwise it kind of makes the game pointless. And as you can imagine, it's quite difficult or nearly impossible to put such a game feasibly on Ethereum. And that's fundamentally the reason why you need a better solution to offer privacy and the spectrum of privacy. It opens doors to new types of applications, to supporting new types of applications that currently don't exist on L1s. And that manifests in the types of dark pools and the types of shielded wallets that people have certainly talked a lot about. But I'd say that privacy is a huge part of that. And then in terms of kind of the third area, I'd say it's really integrity. What I mean by that is consider like like a simple like game of roulette, or maybe you want to talk about poker. One of the big challenges with playing these types of games online is that you need to trust the randomness. Otherwise, it's very hard to believe that you're playing an honest or fair game. And in this case, we can provide a very simple manner of enforcing that type of randomness using zero knowledge proof. You can have a verifiable execution of a specific hash function, of a specific pseudo-random function, and basically attest to the correctness of that result, and allow any party, including all the players, to verify that, for example, this deck of cards was correctly shuffled, that this roll of a dice was a valid result, and it gives online players the ability to not only inspect for themselves the outcome of that game and believe that it was honestly produced, but also be able to create the game themselves and deploy it for others to play. So I'd say that these are probably three of the most fundamentally impactful features or functionalities here. And in terms of the technology, there's certainly a lot of zero knowledge companies that are out there. And first off, we're friends with pretty much all of them. We have good relationships, given that, well, for one, many of them have come from the same research group that I was a part of, the same research lab that I was a part of, but also that this space is quite small. There's only a handful of teams really pursuing it. And, I'd say the thing that really sets us apart from others is that our goal isn't necessarily to kind of continue iterating on the research side of it and trying to find a new proof system, but rather, our goal is to provide a tooling and framework and ecosystem for developers to actually use this type of technology. The goal is to make it so that you don't need to have a background in cryptography or a PhD in cryptography in order to build an application in zero knowledge, that you should be able to do it as if you were just a plain old JavaScript or TypeScript developer. You could be a script kiddie, and you should be able to write something here that can not only run, but can ship and be used by others. And so, for us, the fundamental goal here is to make this technology accessible to the masses.
Okay, thanks. Жень?
Ага. Да. Какие основные преимущества и отличия Aleo проекта от других подобных проектов? Кто ваши конкуренты? Большой ответ, ответим вкратце. Основные фундаментальные челленджи, существующие сейчас в блокчейне, это приватность и возможность масштабировать свои проекты. Например, если взять всем известные игры «Морской бой» или «Шахматы», то они обе могут быть написаны на блокчейне, запущены эфирный блокчейн, ну и в Aleo. Если взять шахматы, доска игровая должна быть видна всем игрокам, обоим игрокам, и это нормально. Но если мы возьмем игру «Морской бой», то в основе лежит то, что вы не видите доску противника, поле противника, и это уже делает ее невозможным к имплементации на эфириуме. Здесь возникает необходимость приватных приложений с применением Zero Knowledge Proof'ов, и Aleo старается решить эту проблему. Не старается, предлагает. Например, если взять более простые примеры, рулетка, покер, то когда вы играете онлайн, то основная проблема — это доверие к хостеру, к организатору игры, доверие к функции рандома, которая перемешивает колоду или подкидывает за вас кость. Вот. И все эти вещи можно решить с помощью Aleo и подобных проектов. И они в хороших отношениях с своими конкурентами, может быть, коллегами даже. И они не видят цель в каком-то конкурировании. Наоборот, их цель — это предложить разработчикам инструменты, фреймворки, SDK, экосистему для разработки подобных приложений и скалирования этих приложений. Так что любой разработчик, который знает JavaScript, TypeScript или другие подобные языки, может легко влиться в эту экосистему и начать разрабатывать и деплоить свои приложения.
Спасибо. Thank you. And now we go to the next question. Actually, it's connected with the previous one, right? You decided to implement your own language, Leo. And as I see, it's a mix of Rust and JS. And why exactly you need to implement your own language? What was missing in the existing ones?
Yeah, this is a really, really great question. For one, the primary reason for developing a new language was that we aren't building a language that compiles to a normal binary that is run on a CPU. We needed a easy way to write programs that can compile to what we call a circuit that can execute in a zero-knowledge proof system. And frankly, looking at what was out there, we wanted to use. There's been some more research level attempts to do this, and we certainly tried using some of those. None of them were production ready in the sense that none of them had, for example, unit tests. You can write unit tests in these types of DSLs that people were making. There certainly wasn't the ability to easily express your code in a format that others could also use or share. So we built a package manager to support that. And frankly, there just wasn't a clear framework or a clear kind of use case that we could see that could tie into a network, a blockchain that it was built for. It was generally meant for zero knowledge proofs and zero knowledge proofs alone. And so we said, why don't we go about taking a stab ourselves at a new programming language that, one, does compile to these circuits that are executed in their knowledge proofs, two, does provide ecosystem support beyond what existing languages within this domain have. So, providing actual unit testing frameworks, history or package manager effectively, providing an IDE, providing all of these pieces that are missing for zero knowledge. And three, the bigger piece really here is to provide something that can be easily tied into a blockchain, something that can be used in a blockchain context. And so having some native concepts about state and state transitions, these are things that just don't exist in existing zero knowledge DSLs. And so we took a stab at these ourselves, and this is what has become of Leo. Leo certainly has advanced a lot. One, we have published a paper on it. It's you can find it on ePrint. If you just Google for like a Leo paper ePrint, you'll likely find it. We've also taken a stab at formal methods for this. So formally verifying the correctness of these compiled applications, which is no simple feat, I will say. That it allows us to have a level of assurance and security about the correctness of every compiled circuit. I think that this is something that's fundamentally very impactful for the future of code on chain. If you look at other blockchains, and certainly if you look at zero knowledge program, many of them often have bugs, and a part of that is due to human error in the execution and the compilation of it. I want to try to minimize those things as much as we can and enforce safety, since you're oftentimes dealing with money or dealing with value that's being transferred and communicated and reasoned about.
Okay, great, thanks. Then.
Значит, вопрос про язык Leo. Первый. Почему вам потребовалось создать свой собственный язык? Почему не подошли другие языки? В первую очередь, что требуется для разработки приватных приложений, это возможность компилировать, они называют circuits, схемы, программы, и запускать на экосистеме с Zero Knowledge Proof. Существуют разные подходы к этому, но ни один из них, из тех, которые они изучили, был готов к продакшену, к использованию. В них не было юнит-тестов. Также в существующих решениях нет возможности делиться кодом, шерить его. Поэтому они внедрили свой язык. У него есть package manager с возможностью делиться своим кодом. Он компилируется в Zero Knowledge Proof системе, блокчейне их. Он поддерживает систему и некоторые другие языки. В нем есть состояние переходов, Zero Knowledge DSL. Вот, в принципе, подробнее об этом описано в статье на ePrint.
If you don't want them to see it, of course, there is a mechanism with view keys to disclose that if you want to make them public. And so this gets to the earlier point I was making, that we have this ability to offer the full spectrum from fully public to fully private applications. But the goal here is to allow application developers to define what they need, and certainly with that data being encrypted, the natural question is, how do you verify that? And the answer, in short, is that through zero knowledge proofs, the value of zero knowledge proofs is that you can pass in this type of private input, and you can verify the correctness of the execution. You can also verify the correctness of the encryption before you put it on chain, so that miners and every node, every client node on the network merely has to check that the proof is correct, and can blindly believe that the actual state then it's one, been verified and it's been executed correctly, but then two, that they can just accept it into their storage, assuming that they're running a full node. So the goal here is to provide, using zero knowledge proofs, the ability to enforce this type of privacy, and by using that approach, we have a mathematical or probabilistically strong guarantee that's formalized with math that you can't break this.
Жень?
Да. Повтори, пожалуйста, вопрос.
Как конкретно вы планируете имплементировать и поддерживать приватность для своих application, для своих приложений в вашей экосистеме? И это был последний вопрос Говарду, потому что он сейчас должен идти дальше. Команда Aleo ответит на остальные вопросы.
Да, значит, как мы поддерживаем приватность приложений? Приложения полностью живут в зашифрованном виде на блокчейне, но при этом разработчики могут выбирать определенной настройкой, публиковать ли код в закрытом или открытом виде. Таким образом, можно публиковать приложение полностью приватное, с закрытым кодом, или полностью публичное. Короткий ответ на все это — Zero Knowledge Proofs. Это большая технология. Она позволяет проверять корректность ключа шифрования, не зная его. И таким образом вы можете подписывать, верить этому пруфу и работать с этим блокчейном и с приложениями на этой цепи. То есть стоит почитать про языки и пруфы, и станет чуть более понятно.
All right. So this was the last question of Howard, right?
Yeah, so I think Howard's going to have to hop off now, but yeah, myself, Sam, Demir, we can try to answer the rest of the questions. So I don't know if Howard, do you want to say any parting words here?
And thank you, Howard, first of all.
Yeah, thank you. First off, thank you to everyone for listening in, and we'll certainly get a copy of this out for everyone to also read and digest. I know that the translations on the fly can be a bit challenging, so thank you, Evgeny, for doing that. Look forward to doing another one of these in the future as well.
Thank you very much. We'll provide both audio and text versions.
Okay, and let's continue, right?
Yeah, did we cover the roadmap question number 4? I don't know if we skipped that one.
I think we skipped.
Okay, do we want to cover that, or we just want to move on to the next?
Yeah, we want.
Okay, so the roadmap, I guess I can give a quick overview on that. So basically, the important thing to note is that our roadmap is constantly evolving. But as of right now, I think the high-level picture is that we're targeting Q1 2022 for Aleo mainnet. So that's when the network will be launched live, and all the miners on the network will be mining for real, I guess you could say, as opposed to just on our testnet. So that's what we're looking at in terms of mainnet. Right now, where we're primarily focused for our roadmap, so looking at Q2 2021, is one, launching the grants program, which we've already done. So highly encourage anybody that wants to submit an application to apply for that, and we can provide the links, but they can also be found on Discord. We are accepting applications on a rolling basis, and we'll be reviewing them weekly. So I think it's a great opportunity for you to participate in our network and build something interesting. But then the next thing that we're really focusing on for actually July 1st is our target, is to run the first of 3 setups for our setup ceremony. So there will be 2 desktop setups. The first one will be July 1st, like I mentioned, and then the second one will happen August 1st after that. And then the third one will happen subsequently a month after that. So basically, we do want contributors to participate in the setup ceremony, and I think there might have been some questions about it in the sheet that was provided, so we can cover that later. But basically, in order for us to actually set up the system, we need to have the ceremony to create a common reference string for the system to operate off of. And so that's something, to potentially get involved in. And in terms of incentivization for that, we're still looking into the possibility for having incentivized opportunities, but right now it's still in the works. But definitely a great way to participate on that front. And then just generally looking at like Q3 2021, we want to maybe start looking at implementing things such as token transfers, finalizing our token economics model for Aleo credits, and then also trying to potentially implement a wallet, which we're calling Voyager. And then for Q4 2021, we want to have our SDK up and running so that you can actually take some of these applications you built with our Leo programming language and deploy them. And then also around Q4 2021, we'll have sort of like a final testnet, like our mainnet testnet, which we hope to have launched, and then also just have a fully stable Leo language with as few bugs as possible. But around that time, we'll also maybe try to implement some more specific bug bounty programs. But for now, we're really just focusing on programming contests since it is still very early. But that's kind of the general roadmap that we're looking at this point in time.
Окей.
Так, вопрос про roadmap, про достижения и тестнет и запуск системы. В целом, общая картина такова, что цель для mainnet — это первый квартал 2022 года. Планируют запустить сеть, майнинг, уже настоящий майнинг с настоящими токенами. Не как в тестнете, мы сейчас это делаем. Далее, на 2021 год большой план — это получать больше аппликейшенов, заявок на гранты, на разработку приложений. Вот, они каждую неделю стараются выпускать апдейты в Дискорде. Нужно следить, подключаться к комьюнити-коллам, который также пройдет на следующей неделе. Также большой шаг в этом году, летом, это запуск Zero Knowledge, сетап-церемония так называемая. Первый этап ее пройдет 1 июля, второй этап 1 августа и последний 1 сентября примерно. Приветствуется следить за этим, участвовать, присоединяться, задавать вопросы.
Также
для этого потребуется... Да, продолжай.
В этом квартале стартует программа грантов для разработчиков на Aleo. Это отличный шанс, собственно, для любых разработчиков податься на него и получить какие-то реварды. Продолжим. Также в этом году на третий квартал планируется имплементация токен-трансферов, перевод токенов, токеномику разработают, введут Aleo Credits, улучшат работу, собственно, разработают кошелек, потому что в данном этапе он практически не работает. К четвертому кварталу планируется уже полностью выпустить SDK с минимальным количеством багов в Aleo языке. Вот. И насчет инсентивов, насчет наград в тестнетах, это все еще в разработке, они смотрят, как это лучше сделать. В принципе, планируют, но пока что ничего не готово, информации нет. All right, and going to the next one, are you planning any non-tech activities or like community activities, marketing, or something like this?
Yeah, so this is something we've been actively discussing, and maybe Sam can jump in here as well. But as of right now, most of the activities that we have going on, as you might have seen, is just having people participate as a miner in our testnet. And I think this is a really great opportunity for you to understand what it means to run a node, such that when we do launch the mainnet, you'll already be set up in a position to actually receive Aleo credits for that mining work, which you would be doing on the network. But other than that, like I said, we also have like our programming contest, which will be a way that you can, try and help us like find bugs in our programming language and also just test out some of the unique features that Howard described with Leo, which makes us, one of the best or the best programming language to use to build with zero knowledge cryptography. In terms of other opportunities we're considering, I think I want to try to run an ambassadors program where we can actually have people help us to, spread the word about the community, maybe do some things like help us translate, especially maybe for the Russian community. And this is something you can also apply as a grant for if you'd like for now. But yeah, there will be more information on these sorts of activities to come very soon. I don't know if Sam, you have anything else you want to add to that?
Yeah, sure. How's my audio here?
I think it's good.
Yep.
Perfect. And this is it's basically going to be the same answer for a lot of these questions I can see here in regards to when is incentivization starting, are there going to be grants for early supporters, yada yada. We know that we want to make it attractive to be an early supporter and to participate and to spread the word and do all these things, but we just don't know precisely how we want to do that yet. We haven't quite nailed it down. So yeah, but the good news is kind of once we decide on what we want to do there, you're probably going to have answers to all of these questions come out all at once. But for now, any questions regarding how and for what we're going to be doing community incentives, the answer is to be determined. One thing worth pointing out, and this is what is so cool about doing a proof of work chain, is that there is a lot of just inherent incentive to being early, right? When you have a proof of stake, when you're launching a proof of stake chain and you want to try to make sure that the validation of the chain is decentralized, the only thing you can do is actually give tokens to as many people as possible, right? Because the only way to validate blocks is to stake tokens. But with proof of work, all that you need to do is make sure is get the hardware, right? So even if you just have a gaming PC going on it, I mean, it's if you're among the first people to be mining it, I mean, you're basically you're kind of like Satoshi in that sense, and in a smaller way. So yeah, that's something worth thinking about when you're talking about what are the incentives for early adopters of these systems.
Can I add a little bit to this? So, how would you identify early supporters at this stage? We only have wallet address, but it's not fully implemented yet. Should people keep their miners and wallet addresses in safe place, backed up, or is this just yet to come? All this early mining stage.
That's a great and very observant question, and yeah, the answer to that is we don't have an answer to it yet, but it is definitely something for thinking about.
Cool, thank you. Вопрос про награду. Когда, сколько, что. Они планируют раздавать награды ранним саппортерам. Это правильная стратегия с их точки зрения. На данном этапе можно участвовать в тестнете как майнер. Также есть гранты, в том числе на комьюнити, на работу, на гайды, на видео, на работу с языком Leo, с студией. В будущем за это должны вы получать Aleo кредиты. Пока что неизвестно как, неизвестно когда, неизвестно сколько. Они хотят это сделать, но как и когда, пока неизвестно. Нужно следить, задавать вопросы, может быть, предлагать в Дискорде. Вот. В принципе, я думаю, вы видели, пару недель назад был комьюнити-колл, там объявили множество различных грантов. Следует обратить на них внимание и пытаться податься на какие-то из них. Что касается майнинга, в отличие от Proof of Stake, где вам нужны токены, чтобы участвовать как валидатор или еще запускать ноды, в Proof of Work вам просто нужен компьютер, железо, даже игровой компьютер. Этого достаточно, чтобы начать майнить токены и быть ранним саппортером. На данном этапе непонятно, как будут идентифицироваться ранние саппортеры, но они над этим думают и работают. Так что следим. Ответ, в принципе, такой. Нужно майнить.
И также команда думает насчет амбассадорской программы, не технической, то есть они понимают важность этого дела, но пока подробностей конкретных нет. Okay, so actually we covered a lot of questions with this one, right? And the next, I think it's interesting for me, first of all, how do you plan to hold this ceremony, right? And what will be the difference between your ceremony and the cash, for example?
Yeah, I should probably take this one. It's a great question, and yeah, we are using a system that you may have heard of if you are familiar with kind of setup systems, called Power of Tau, or Powers of Tau rather. It was what was used by Tornado Cash and I believe some others have used it as well. But I think with the difference between this setup scheme, the setup system, and the one used by Zcash at a high level is just you can get way more people involved in it way easier, right? So Zcash, I think the smallest kind of setup set that they had at one point, I think it was like 6 or 9 people, which and with that scheme, I believe that it was you needed to have it was only secure if you had an honest 2/3 majority. What's cool, so and let's look at just at how that compares to the setup scheme that was actually done in the real world by Tornado Cash, was using this Powers of Tau scheme. Is they had over 1,000 participants from all over the world. They didn't have to be in the same physical space, right? This thing can be done just over the internet. So over 1,000 participants, and I actually, now that I can't recall if they have this new system, but essentially the one that we're using is going to have it so that so long as only a single person is honest and destroys their quote unquote toxic waste, the system is secure. So it's not like, you know, 2/3. It's not like 2/3 need to be honest, or sorry, it's not like it's the opposite of that. It's not like 1/3 needs to be honest. It's literally only one person needs to be honest, and you know we're gunning to beat Tornado Cash's setup. We want, you know, I don't want to commit to a number, but like our goal is in the thousands of participants. We want as many people as possible for the final one. But yeah, so that's kind of like this is how much radically more secure this and decentralized this kind of setup scheme is. In that, you know, let's just say we end up getting 2,000 people to participate. All that we need, and anyone can join this, by the way. Like any of you who want to participate in this can join this. And all that is required for the setup to be considered secure is for a single person to behave honestly. So, yeah, when you're talking about, and this is why we don't even think it's correct to call this a quote unquote trusted setup at this point, because just the numbers that you're talking about and the probabilities that you're kind of presented with that there was some way where every single member was collaborating, just it gets absurd really quickly. Actually, I put this in my bio here. I put out a piece that was posted on the Zero Knowledge podcast blog there, specifically about Powers of Tau and how it compares to old systems and why it's so great. So if you want kind of a more in-depth overview of what it is, how it works, and how it compares to older systems, check out the link in my bio there.
Yeah, and just to reiterate on that, so for the setup ceremony, there's 3 ceremonies. There's a universal setup, an outer setup, and an inner setup. The universal setup, like I mentioned before, will be happening on July 1st. The outer setup will be happening August 1st, and then subsequently the inner setup will be done on September 1st. And the inner setup on September 1st is actually a browser setup, so it will be much more easily accessible to people in the community. So I would say perhaps if you don't have a really beefy machine already available for those first 2 setups, the one happening July 1st and August 1st, I think probably one of the best ones to engage with would be the browser setup on September 1st. And we're actually going to be conducting user interviews and showcasing the website that we put together to actually participate in the setup. So if you know, pay attention to our Discord, we'll actually be having some folks reaching out to community members to ask more about this and see how we can make this the most effective and useful ceremony for people to participate in. So I think that's another point to take note of.
Thanks. Жень.
Да. Вопрос по сетап-церемонии. Как она будет проходить? Чем она отличается от церемонии Zcash, например? Сэм отвечает, что они будут использовать систему Powers of Tau. Она, например, была использована в Tornado Cash. В чем отличие? Например, в Zcash при стаб-церемонии. Что такое стаб-церемония? Это в двух словах процесс подтвержденного создания ключа шифрования и его уничтожения. Это большая задача для приватных блокчейнов приложений. Вот они ее будут решать. В Zcash было 6 или 9 человек в стаб-церемонии, и чтобы по их схеме сделать церемонию корректной, успешной, должно было быть 2/3 участников, честными, должны были там провести эти действия, удалить ключи, как это будет происходить. В Powers of Tau может участвовать 1000 человек, 2000 человек. Они могут участвовать через интернет в разных местах по всему миру. И для ее успеха достаточно одного честного, так сказать, человека, участника, который уничтожит ключ и запустит систему. Это радикально отличает этот механизм от механизма, используемого в Zcash. И также эта церемония будет открыта для всех участников Telegram, Discord. Каждый может присоединиться и поучаствовать в ней. Напомню, что она будет проходить в 3 этапа. 1 июля, 1 августа, 1 сентября. И для первых 2, говорят, нужно будет серьезное железо, наверное, ВДС-ку или вообще железо. А вот 3 этап 1 сентября, он будет проходить буквально в браузере, то есть это финальный этап. И каждый может в нем уже поучаствовать. Надо следить за Дискордом. Люди от команды будут обращаться к людям, проводить интервью, показывать веб-сайт, как все это будет происходить. Так что следите за новостями по стаб-церемонии в Дискорде. Ну и, конечно же...
Жень?
Да. Новости по церемонии будут в Discord, ну и, конечно же, мы их прикрепим в Telegram, как только будут появляться. Все.
Да, спасибо. Okay, for the ceremony is more or less understandable and okay. And the question that was skipped, actually, it's a bit important, I think. What is the difference between a node and a miner in Aleo? So for a miner is pretty much okay, but what is a node? What is the purpose of a node?
I think it's identical to any other proof of work chain, where the reason why you want to run a node is essentially just a full copy of the blockchain, right? Same as it is on Bitcoin, right? But when you ask what is a node on Bitcoin, usually you mean a full node, and what that means is a full validated copy of the entire Bitcoin blockchain. And the reason why you want to have that is because it just gives you the strongest possible security guarantees when you're interacting with the network. And there's also going to, in the same as with Bitcoin, there's a quote unquote light client or a light node where it's just the block headers. So you can kind of validate the height of the chain, sort of, and you can kind of prove that a particular transaction was in the chain at some point, even though you don't have to store every single transaction itself. So I think that when you're talking about what's the difference between a miner and a node, you can just look at any other proof of work blockchain, and it's going to be exactly the same paradigm for the most part.
Yeah, that's clear. Thank you.
Переведешь?
Вопрос был, в чем разница между майнером и нодой. Майнер то же самое, как и майнер в любом Proof of Work консенсусе, выполняет работу сети по нахождению блоков. А нода — это, если мы говорим о full ноде, то есть целой ноде, выполняет те же самые функции, как и в биткоине, как и в любой другой Proof of Work сети. Это полная копия всей сети, и это самый reliable, самый надежный источник данных о сети, о транзакциях. То есть, если вы хотите запустить какое-то приложение, конечно же, вам нужно поднимать full ноду. Если вы хотите получать реворды, то вам нужно запускать майнер. И других отличий нет. То есть то же самое, как в любом Proof of Work консенсусе. Okay. So, and now we start the third
Little
one.
version. And,
Okay.
So miners will get some mined blocks and Aleo credits. And is there a reason for people to run Node if they don't want to run infrastructure or run applications? Will they get any incentives in the future or in the mainnet? Can you answer?
Yes, so that's a good question. I mean, so obviously, like, I guess the two ways that people can receive the Aleo credits is one, obviously, by like running nodes on the network and mining, like Sam had mentioned before, right? So you're mining blocks. But then the other way that people can receive credits is those same miners, I suppose, can also, like, if you don't want to have to like validate transactions, there's actually a process within our system where you can pass off that responsibility to another miner on the network. But again, those rewards would be going to the people that would be like validating those transactions. So I guess if you don't want to like have to go through all the work of mining blocks, you can also like validate transactions for people. And the way that that works is essentially so there's a prover key and a verifier key, right? When you're sort of grinding these snarks in our system. So like in Bitcoin, you grind SHA-256, right? In our system, you grind snarks. And basically what happens is if you want, you can actually use your private key to generate a separate key, right, which can actually be used by these miners on the network to, validate transactions for you if you don't want to do that yourself. So I guess that's the other way that you can sort of receive Aleo credits. But those are kind of the two main ways that people will be able to receive credits as of right now. Perhaps there will be other ways in the future, but as of right now, that's kind of what we have in the works.
So do I understand correctly that you will have snark workers, right?
Yeah, you can think about it that way. Exactly, yeah.
Угу. Окей, то есть в сети будут также еще так называемые валидаторы, это ноды. Если кто-то участвовал в мине, то можно сказать, что это именно снарк-воркеры, которые производят снарки для аппликейшенов. И этим способом тоже можно получить реварды, то есть не только майнить блоки, но и валидировать транзакции от аппликейшенов. Это хороший поинт. Женя, что-то добавишь?
Да, в принципе, пока нечего добавить. Вроде все.
Okay, now to the most boring part, to the sales and ICO. So, are you planning to have any public sale?
As of right now, we don't have plans for a public sale. I would say that, one thing we have been considering is for those folks who are participating in the testnet, we've thought about somehow potentially trying to reward those folks that when mainnet launches, like as we kind of talked about before, like recognizing those folks. Again, I don't want to give any specifics on that because we don't want to commit to anything since we haven't made an official announcement or decision on that. But as we begin to figure out more of the token economics around the Aleo credits, that is something we will be considering. And that's basically the best way, I would say, for you to get to get access to tokens early on. Potentially there could be, maybe we'll do something with CoinList perhaps, but again, this is something, that's not official and we're kind of just discussing it internally. So again, I would say just get in early on the network. We will find ways to recognize those people that have participated from the very beginning, and there will be opportunities for you to be rewarded. And also, if you participate in the setup ceremony, we're also considering ways of potentially rewarding people. But again, no specifics on that at the moment. But no official, public sale plan as of right now.
Okay. Итак, команда не планирует, по крайней мере сейчас, проводить ICO или другой вид публичного сейла. но, однако, она планирует распределить какие-то токены между, собственно, нами, тем, кто участвует в тестнете. Как конкретно это будет делаться, пока не очень ясно, возможно, как-то через CoinList или как-то по-другому, сейчас они как раз это обсуждают. Но однозначно все, кто участвовал в тестнете, каким-то образом будут вознаграждены. И особенно те, кто будет участвовать в сетап-церемонии. Женя, еще что-то?
Сетап-церемонии скорее возможно. Возможно, мы получим какие-то реворды за сетап-церемонии. А вот за участие в сети наверняка. Больше информации должно быть, когда они поработают с токеномикой над Aleo Credits, то есть в конце этого года. Там, может быть, больше точной информации они смогут дать. Таким образом, продолжаем участвовать, майнить, следить за грантами для разработчиков и разрабатывать приложения.
Yeah, maybe one of the things for this browser setup ceremony, at least, we also thought about maybe just providing people with an NFT, which would be able to uniquely identify them as somebody that participated. And there's a idea floating around to perhaps use that NFT as a way to identify those contributors and use it as a mechanism to provide rewards. But again, what those rewards will be and what that looks like is still to be determined. So yeah.
То есть какие конкретно реворды, это сейчас обсуждается, но как будут они распределены? Они будут распределены в том числе за участие в сетап-церемонии в последнем этапе, который будет происходить пока что 1 сентября. Так что надо участвовать. Возможно, участники будут идентифицированы по NFT, то есть им будут раздаваться NFT уникальные. Это не награды, это как идентифицировать тех, кто участвовал. А какие конкретно награды? Сейчас никакой официальной информации нет. Ждем, пока команда это обсудит и выложит. Естественно, все это будет в нашем телеграме. Okay, so actually we're out of questions. Let's start with the one in the chat. Guys, все официальные вопросы закончены. Пишите вопросы в чат. Какие вам интересны? So the first question that I see is the minimum system requirements for miner.
Yeah, so that's a good question. I think somebody might have talked about this in the Discord. So I can find it. I'm not sure what the minimum is exactly. I don't know if Demir, you might know, but I know. Okay, so looking at this, so somebody who's running a VPS 6 CPU at 16 RAM at 100 SSD. So I would say maybe somewhere around there is the minimum, but at least for the testnet, it shouldn't be, too complicated. I think if you have any standard, if you're running on like Mac OS, or like a Linux system specifically, I think, at least for the testnet, those requirements should be fine to mine. Now, when the mainnet actually launches, that could potentially change, but I think that's what I would say for now. I don't know if Demir, if not, but.
Что если вы собираете программы, то все напрямую зависит от того, какие программы вы, собственно, выполняете, потому что в зависимости от сложности и размера системы R1CS, constraint системы, то есть в зависимости от ваших circuits, у вас может быть абсолютно разные требования к железу. А что касается нод на тестнете, в принципе, у нас сейчас живут несколько нод просто на процессорах M1, и они вполне себе живут.
А для майнера именно в майннете пока непонятно.
Абсолютно нет.
Угу. Но правильно я понимаю, что сейчас для майнеров в тестнете это 6 CPU, я не очень понял, только это потоки или CPU, и 32 гига оператива. Верно?
16.
Или 16, вот тоже хотел уточнить. Это я правильно понял или нет? То есть...
Я точно услышал.
Плохо слышно.
У меня только что прервалась связь. Вы только что задали мне вопрос, или нет?
Да. Я правильно понимаю, что в тестнете Минимальные требования — это 6 ЦПУ или 6 потоков, тоже вопрос, и 16 гигов оперативы.
Сказать невозможно. Вы слышите меня, да?
Вот.
У нас, то есть потому что мы не проводили специальные тесты по определению минимальных требований, потому что мы все еще определяем, можем ли мы майнить на CPU или на GPU. Вот. И больше информации в Дискорде, потому что там люди действительно пробуют запускать разные ноды, и они могут дать информацию об этом. А официального пока резолюшена этой темы нет.
Спасибо. Это был Дамир, это инженер команды Aleo. Мне кажется, не представили в начале.
Окей. Гайс, на все вопросы, которые вы пишете, мы уже ответили. Есть ли смысл держать просто ноду для получения награды в будущем? Да. Будет ли тестовая сеть с наградами, тоже мы уже ответили на этот вопрос. The next question is actually a bit strange for me. Is it possible to run nodes in the cluster? No idea.
To be could they maybe like expand upon that? I'm not sure. Yeah, about that question.
Да, давайте дополним вопрос, последний, потому что я его не очень понял. В целом, я думаю, что вопросов было много. Давай еще подождем минут 5. О, nice one. So how these private applications would be connected with Aleo network, and would be any legal issues with this? Because, private applications are not supported by the government, and if someone tries to use your network for the private application, that is illegal. What you will do in this case?
Yeah, so I think so we just hired somebody who's helping us as like a legal counsel. But yeah, we're like, for example, we just had a conversation with one of the former SEC chairmen, at least in the United States, to discuss some of these issues. So I think this is something we will continue to be exploring, and yeah, we'll share with the community as we have more updates. But in general, I would say our system is private by default, right? Which means that all of the metadata that you're providing when you formulate a zero knowledge proof is only viewable by the prover, for example. But because it's private by default, that means you have the option to selectively reveal certain information about the transaction, but that's up to the end user. So for example, if we were to write up an application that needed to be compliant to a specific government, we would basically just work with whatever that agency is to determine, okay, is there specific data or information that does need to be revealed while still being able to obfuscate others. So I think that's a key feature of our platform and something that should help to mitigate some of those issues as the time arises.
Right. Жень?
Вкратце отвечая, они как раз недавно начали разговоры с юристами на этот счет. Но в целом в приватных приложениях все равно можно... Конечный пользователь может выбирать, насколько его транзакция не приватна, публична. Какого-то конкретного ответа на вопрос, как быть с незаконными приложениями, я не услышал. Может быть, пропустил. Но, я думаю, мы это добавим в статью.
И сейчас ребята наняли юриста, которыми сейчас как раз консультируются по этому вопросу. Как только будет какая-то информация, мы ее выложим. And one more interesting question is, what are the current partnerships with L1, for example, blockchains or L2? Do you have oracles maybe?
Yes, that's a good question. So right now we're working on a number of partnerships. Just because they're not officially public yet, I won't mention any specific names, but we're thinking about doing things like creating bridges between other L1s. So for example, there are other layer ones that we're working with that have a lot of DeFi applications that are built on their platforms. And essentially what we want to be able to do is provide some of the more privacy preserving primitives associated with Aleo and allow people to use those in their DeFi applications on other platforms. So an example that maybe you could think of is, for example, on-chain derivatives is a very difficult use case to execute right now on chain specifically. A lot of it is happening, off chain and through these like other sort of centralized exchange platforms. And so basically what we want to be able to do is, for example, like provide a system where we can have more of a private decentralized exchange like a dark pool or some of these other things that Howard discussed before. But more importantly, by bridging to these other chains, we can do things like assess. So for example, for like on-chain derivatives, it assess somebody's creditworthiness without having to reveal specific financial data or personal information about the individual. So that's kind of like one way that you can think about how we're bridging to other L1s. And again, we have our own blockchain, right? We are sort of marketing ourselves as a layer one solution, but we also recognize that it's important to partner with other layer ones who may have certain characteristics about them that make them well suited for particular use cases that perhaps, somebody may want to, still build on those other layer ones and not necessarily have to completely transition over to our stack.
Окей.
Немножко со связью была проблема. Если ты все слышал, можешь помочь с ответом.
Сейчас партнерство планируется, непонятно пока, правда, с кем, конкретной информации нет, но, конечно же, команда понимает, что партнерства важны и нужны. Естественно, информация, как только будет официальная информация о партнерстве, мы ее сообщим. Но также планируется много партнерств с Layer 1 чейнами, как, собственно, сам Aleo, так он является Layer 1. All right. Actually,
is for connecting to other layer ones. Again, we are looking for people to build like tooling and infrastructure for these kinds of things. So if there is a particular layer one that maybe people in the Russian community are already well connected with or building on, and you want to make some sort of connection or bridge between Aleo and that layer one, like we're definitely open to help funding those kinds of opportunities. So definitely if you have something specific in mind, feel free to engage with us and we can talk about how, we can help support those efforts.
То есть, если у кого-то есть завязки с другими Layer 1 чейнами, если вы готовы предложить какое-то решение, например, бридж между Aleo и этим Layer 1 чейном, Aleo открыты, предлагайте.
Да, и это будет в рамках грантов, так что если вы уже над чем-то работаете или работали в другом проекте, хорошо связано с каким-то Layer 1 блокчейном, разрабатывайте, подавайтесь на гранты, пишите в личку, вас обязательно заметят.
Контакты мы дадим. Right, actually, we covered...
One little question is, how can you check how many blocks your miner produced? We got our wallet linked to miner, but is there anything we can do to check how many blocks your miner produced?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say right now you should be able to use our block explorer to check that. So if you just, I think I can send the specific link after this in the Telegram channel, but I think that's probably the best place to look. I don't know if Demir, you have any other insights on that, but I would say that's probably the best place to start.
Yeah, we don't have any input.
Ты прервался.
Мне нечего добавить.
Да,
Окей.
то есть, а каким образом идентифицировать себя в Explorer?
Попробуйте задать вопрос в Дискорде, потому что ни я, ни Энтони не являемся, не участвуем в разработке ноды самой. Вот. Но если у вас есть какие-то вопросы, в принципе, можно через Discord, можно через нас задать их, и я могу, опять же, транслировать их назад в чат.
Так, вопрос был от Николы. Как, собственно, посмотреть, сколько ваш майнер произвел блоков? Ответ в Explorer. Как конкретно, не ясно. Нужно будет вопрос этот форварднуть, задать в Дискорде. Потому что Энтони и Дамир, они не разработчики ноды, не могут ответить на этот вопрос.
Давай мы зададим и форварднем в наш чат.
Да.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say I'm not sure, but I have to double check on this, but there might have been some scripts that our VP of engineering also posted in Discord, which may be useful to gather that information, but I need to double check on that. But we can, yeah, definitely provide that information.
Well, we got monitoring script from Alex, but it's not particularly what your miner did, but the state of your miner, like the length of the chain, the height.
Okay.
So I think the question was like how much work your miner actually did on the network, and from my knowledge, you can't do it right now, but we'll ask this question on Discord and see if we can find more information.
Let's double check this on Discord.
Yeah, we're actively trying to implement a lot of these features that people have been mentioning in Discord. So I think that's probably the best move.
Краткий ответ сейчас никак, но обязательно мы спросим в Дискорде. Если это сейчас возможно, напишем, запилим в чате. Okay, so I think we're done because we've got a lot of questions, and all our other questions we already covered that are in the chat. So thank you very much for your time for AMA. There were a lot of good questions and good answers, of course, and hope it's not the last AMA for Russian community.
Yeah, definitely. Thanks for having us. And we're really trying to engage more with our regional and language specific communities. So we can definitely, as the project progresses and we have more things to share and the testnet becomes more stable, etc., we can definitely continue to follow up. Thanks for having us.
Yep. Thank you very much for your time and for bringing a huge portion of your team and covering many different questions, starting from sales and technical ones and plans. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you.
Спасибо, guys. Собственно, это все. Вопросы у нас закончились. Мы обязательно выложим и аудиотрансляцию, и текстовую версию на русском, естественно. Аудиоверсия будет выложена на нашем YouTube-канале, а текстовая, соответственно, в Телеграме. И еще раз всем спасибо за ваше время. И, скорее всего, будут еще AMA с проектом Aleo. Я надеюсь, что это будет AMA по сетап-церемонии, потому что вопросов еще очень много, а попасть туда нам нужно обязательно. All right. Thank you, I think, for your time. That's it.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.
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 Да. Все, спасибо, ребята. Спасибо вам за ваше время. Пока.
ファンドズアーセーフ